Hello, this is Mrs. Bennett-Morgenstern, and I know I haven't met some of you, but it's time for us to get started and do some art. I'm going to go over things in a very basic way, and I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible because the first project is not that difficult. If you were looking at the stream on Google Classroom, I had told you this morning that supplies are coming in for you to come and pick up, but this is a project that you can do with just a piece of copy paper, a pen, a Sharpie if you have one. It's very, very basic, and a ruler. So hopefully you have those things at home. It's not quite necessary to go out and buy for this project because what you're going to be looking at is pretty basic. First, I just want to introduce what we're going to be going over in Art 1. Basically, every project that we do is going to deal with the elements of design: line, shape, color, texture, and space. This is the way that people look at art in a very basic way. So the elements of design should be in all art, but they don't have to be. For example, the first project, we are only going to use black and white. So there is no color. We aren't necessarily going to use shape by itself. We may use texture if you just happen to do it. It's not required. And the only thing that we're going to learn about space with this project is using the entire paper. Also want to apologize for any of the quality of the video because this is my first time doing it at school. There might be an echo, and hopefully in the future I'll be coming to you in a more live way during our Google Classroom Google Meet session. Okay, so when we're talking about line, we're talking about line as a path of a moving point. So if you put a dot on a piece of paper and you drag it across the table, across the paper, you're going to create a line. In math, line segments have a beginning and an end. But if you think about it, a line can go on forever in space if you want it to. Also, lines have different qualities. They have different varieties. They can be repetitive. They have repetition to create a pattern. And that's a little bit of what you're going to be doing in this project. It's not going to be something that is too hard to understand, even with this brief introduction. So some of the more fancier words that you're going to be hearing me use over the next few projects are the words organic, and in this project it's organic line, and the word static. Okay, and that's just static line. Organic line are lines that are curvy. Okay, they kind of have a movement and that they look like they're alive. Static lines are lines that are straight. We use static lines quite a bit when we are writing, but we also use some organic lines. But for writing, static line, in order for it to be legible, we use quite a bit. Now, the idea of this project is, number one, to make it very easy for you to do and get a grade. And secondly, it's just to kind of introduce you to all the different ways that line could be expressive all by itself. So I'm going to show you a couple of student examples and a couple of examples that I've done. I'm going to start off with mine. You can certainly go online and look for examples on your own, okay? Let me turn it this way, maybe get it a little closer, okay? This is very random. And again, it's just repetitive line qualities over and over and over in no particular order. So there might be patterns within each section, but the whole design is kind of randomly planned out. Same thing with this one. Okay, black and white design, random linear design, We have curvy lines, we have straight lines. This one appears to me to be a little bit more on the organic side, more curved lines than there are straight lines. What you're not seeing a lot of in both of the examples are things being colored in, large areas of black. So you want there to be an equal amount of white and black throughout the whole design. I did those on the plane when I was taking a long trip. This is a student artwork, and it's not quite finished because I think that we went on vacation. But he had done this quite a few years ago, and all of the designs that you see are freehand. It's extremely detailed. Okay? In your design, I do not want you to try to do lettering. Okay? Although I'm going to show you examples of it, I don't want you to do any lettering. It's too difficult at this point. We're just going to concentrate on just creating patterns and repetition and line quality. Nothing too complicated. This is another one, not quite what we're going to be doing because it does include lettering, and it has some spaces that are colored in, quite dark, some shapes, but it's really well done, and it does fill up the whole paper, and this is quite a bit larger than what you're going to be working on. And lastly, and this is an interesting idea, okay, this is a student work, and then I'll show you mine. This is actually the project from last year. We went outside and we collected leaves, and we used them as stencils, and we did the design inside the leaf shape. Okay, so if you have something that you can trace, maybe your hand, maybe a leaf, maybe a shell, and you want to include that in your design as a way to make it interesting, certainly do that. Okay, and then the background is left blank. But notice, the whole design in and of itself is using the whole space of the paper. So there's an equal amount of what's being drawn and what's being left blank. And then lastly, notice I didn't even mention the color because it's not really that important. Lastly, there's this example. This is the same idea of using the leaves as the stencil, but instead of doing design inside the leaf shapes, it's done in the leftover space. And I'm going to talk more about the difference between what we draw and what's left over in another lesson. But again, this is covering the whole paper, and it's just about making sure there's an equal amount of white space to design space. All right, there's one way to do it. The tools I've used, they're just a piece of white drawing paper. This is a 9x12 piece, but you don't have to use it. You can use copy paper or anything that's blank, even if it's colored, if that's all you have. Okay, one of the greatest tools to have for this class, and you're going to be getting them once I get all the supplies in, is a plastic see-through ruler. That makes it very easy for you to see. Use the student example. You can see through, as you're doing the design, what's underneath. Okay? So it makes it a lot easier to evenly space and do a very neat and quality job on all your work. Lastly, a Sharpie marker. If you don't have a Sharpie marker, you can use a pen. Pencil is okay, however, it will smudge after a while, and you want this design to be very, very crisp. You want the black to be as black as it could be. You want the white to stay as white as it can, okay? And Sharpie markers dry very quickly, so you're not gonna get any smudges. So this is an ultrafine Sharpie marker, but like I said, if you've got any Inkjoy gel pens, they work really well. Just try to stick with either black, and if you don't have black, use the darkest color you can, because you want there to be a big difference between black and white. Now, a lot of this type of art is really easy. Well, what's the point? There's plenty of ways that we can use art in real life, and one of them is in clothing design, and one of them is in home decorating. So you might just even want to look in your own wardrobe to see if you have, or if anybody in your family has, anything that's using bold and bright linear designs. Maybe even your backpack that you would be using to come to school, or, you know, traveling around. It might have stripes on it. It might have a design on it. So linear design is quite prevalent in most of the design world in terms of fashion and home decorating. Okay, the due date for this project will be listed in the classroom tab, okay, when you get the assignment online. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of me through Google Meet on Wednesday, or once we start tuning in every day to Google Meets, of course, you can ask a question then. Okay, we'll see you next time.